Welcome into another episode of Ravens Reports, man. We got so much news to cover, starting with fantastic news on injury updates with Nate Wiggins. Kyle Hamilton update after a big-time injury scare today. The biggest takeaways from practice today as Isaiah Likely and Lamar Jackson have another monster practice. And John Harbaugh addressing the media with some of the top takeaways from the first preseason game. We got all that and much more. Let's go ahead and dive in. At number one, some practice highlights. A big day from Isaiah Likely, who continues to dominate. He's been one of Lamar Jackson's favorite targets. It's reported that Lamar Jackson connected several times on some deep shots down the field to Isaiah Likely, who's got some sneaky downfield speed and a monster catch radius with his big frame and his vice just iron grip hands. Jackson also connected deep with Mark Andrews on a touchdown and hit Zay Flowers in stride downfield for another touchdown. Kyle Barber reports that he thought this was Lamar Jackson's best practice throwing the ball deep today, throwing the ball downfield, repeatedly connecting with Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers. However, there were some hiccups today, not on Lamar Jackson's end, but he got very frustrated today as his first deep ball of practice went to a wide open Nelson Agholor, who dropped it. A little bit later, Jackson ripped off his helmet, tossed it off to the ground in frustration, and Nelson Agholor dropped a second ball later in practice, and Jackson was expressing frustration again. This has not been the first time that we've heard of Nelson Agholor dropping catches in his career. It's crazy because he makes some, acrobatic, fantastic clutch catches and plays at times, but then there's the ones where he gets a ball downfield and it's like right in the bucket. It's not even contested. It hits him in the hands and it just falls out. That's kind of been the highs and lows of Nelson Agholor at times. However, I still think he has the trust of Lamar Jackson as he made a ton of plays for him last year. At number two, let's hit some of these injury updates because we got a ton. First of all, with Nate Wiggins, John Harbaugh said today, Wiggins is not a serious injury, and then joked it's the same one he got last week whenever he did the water slide drill. He said, look at my movement. I would have been active for the game, so I think we're good. He says he might miss a little bit of practice, but he'll be just fine for week one. Great news because Nate Wiggins was an absolute menace as a defender. I just got to say, I feel bad if it's like your first game as a wide receiver, as a rookie, or you're getting some action in preseason, you're trying to show what you can do, and you go against Nate Wiggins as your first, it's just not even fair to really show what you can do. But Nate Wiggins, the Ravens said, was the best corner coming out of the draft, and they might just be right because what he put out on tape was elite. And this wasn't the first time we've seen it during the offseason. The Ravens have been talking about how good he's been. He got the nickname Nasty Nate from Marlon Humphrey. He's going to be a dude in this secondary for a long time. Another big update is one of the Ravens' biggest playmakers, wide receiver Rashad Bateman, will be back at practice soon after dealing with some soreness, falling on the football after an amazing touchdown grab from Lamar Jackson about a week ago. We also got an update on Adisa Isaac, who's been cleared to practice. He practiced a few days, but wasn't cleared for full preseason, game activities. And he said he hopes that he gets ramped up quick because he wants to see him out there in our next preseason game versus the Atlanta Falcons. And speaking of that game against the Falcons, it looks like the Ravens defense is going to get some good reps against a really talented 9th overall quarterback, Michael Penix, who had a really good first preseason game. It's also reported that TJ Tampa is getting close, and same thing with David Ojabo. So no one is seriously injured and in jeopardy of missing regular season time right now except for Arthur Maulet. Arthur Maulet might miss a few weeks of games to start the season, but should be back shortly after that. We are looking good on the injury front. Again, there was a big scare today. Kyle Hamilton went down holding his leg, limped to the locker room. It looked bad at first, and people were reporting out very concerned when it first happened that he had an apparent leg injury. However, John Harbaugh said the initial test looked good. They'll keep checking it out, but no real fear of a serious type of injury. The leg is stable. At number three, John Harbaugh talked a little bit about the offensive line. Specifically, he was asked, how would you feel about Andrew Voorhees and Roger Rosengarten going out and possibly starting week one? He said, no doubt. He said there's no doubt they could play week one. And here's what John Harbaugh had to say on the O-line.
There weren't always the right routes being run. We had a couple little hiccups in protection with some of the younger guys. So just things like that are things we worked through. I did think the offensive line played well. Go back and you watch the tape from a run blocking standpoint and a pass blocking standpoint. Man for man, I thought they played well.
Andrew Voorhees did not allow a single pressure or sack. Looked really good as a run blocker and pass protector. I think he's got that starting left guard spot all but locked up. John Harbaugh also mentioned that they would like to, have the offensive line announced and established by, week 2 or 3 of the preseason. So just around the corner here. It's also worth mentioning that Ben Cleveland looked really good at center. John Harbaugh said maybe that's his position. Maybe he's a center. I still think that he would be the better candidate for right guard over Daniel Falele right now, but that remains to be seen. We'll see what the Ravens do and shuffle around at the offensive line. But regardless, man, we'll know the starting 5 here sooner rather than later. At number 4, Derrick Henry has another big practice. It's reported by Kyle Barber. 2 big runs, with one being a touchdown, the other being a subjective touchdown due to tackling rules. And Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, man, shout out to my patrons who support the channel. We had some guys, we did a fantasy football league, and we had 10 guys, 10 spots in there, and we had the first 10 from the Patreon hop into that league. Last night we had our draft, and Derrick Henry went 1 spot before me, and I was so salty, man, whoever that was. But whoever made that pick, man, it's a good pick, because Derrick Henry, the dude's probably going to have 15 to 20 touchdowns this year. I'm dead serious, man. I think anytime we get down in the red zone, Derrick Henry's going to get a lot of touches, and I don't think he'll be denied very often, especially with the running lanes and the hesitation that Lamar Jackson's going to open up as that dual threat. And then what he's going to do for these other playmakers, with them trying to stack the box, is going to be absolutely incredible, specifically going back to these tight ends with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews that are going to be catching a lot of balls over the middle off play action. Yeah, I'm here for it. And at number 5, speaking of the running back position, here's what John Harbaugh had to say on Owen Wright.
Yeah, I think Owen has been one of those guys, he's an explosive guy. And I thought he ran the ball hard, north and south, Hit it up in there, was explosive, did pretty solid in pass protection, ran the routes well. I thought he made a case for himself, so we'll see going forward. I really thought all the guys did. Collier didn't get many reps, and Ali ran in there hard now. He was aggressive, and he's got that speed and explosiveness. The one he popped around the edge was kind of good to see that burst. And I promise you, he's got good hands. He shows good hands out here in practice. He had that one drop. I'm not going to panic about that. He's got good hands.
Owen Wright's got to be in the lead right now for RB3. But John Harbaugh also mentioned that he liked what he saw out of Rasheen Ali. I think that Owen Wright definitely outperformed him. But he said that Rasheen Ali's hands, he had that one drop. He said, don't worry about the hands. We see it in practice all the time. So obviously practice does matter. So I wonder how much weight and stock they put into, if a guy dominates in practice then looks average in the game, or if a guy sucks in practice and then looks, great in the game. Like, I wonder how they average that out as far as, roster spots and depth. But right now, I think Owen Wright is in the lead for RB3. All right, guys, smash the like button like Derrick Henry's about to be smashing linebackers if you enjoyed today's content, man. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
When he wasn't looking, he ran me over.